Hello everyone, this is Aisha and welcome to our 45th Kotlin tutorial. And in this tutorial, I'll be talking about the recursive function in Kotlin programming language. So a function which calls itself is called the recursive function, and this process of calling a function itself is called recursion. So now here you can see we have a function with the name recursion, and now inside the body of this recursion function we have called this function itself, and then the actual calling of the function is from the main function. When this main function calls this function, we are in the body of this recursion function, and inside this recursion function we have called this function again. Now this is called the recursive function which calls itself. So now you can see here the working of the recursive function. So now we have called the recursive function, then the control will be transferred to the body of this function. Then again inside the body of this function we have the statement which calls the function itself. So now the control will be transferred to the starting of this recursion function. So this is called the infinity recursion because we have no condition which will stop this recursion, which will stop calling this function. So now another thing, we use the if condition to stop this recursion. So when this condition becomes false, the body of the if statement will not be executed, and hence our recursion will be stopped. So first of all, we are calling this recursion function. The control is transferred to the body of the recursion function, and inside the body we have the if condition. If the condition is true, the control is entered into the body of the if statement, and then this function is called again, and this process will be continued until the condition becomes false. So now let's create a simple example. In Kotlin, I'm going to create a function using the keyword fun, which will calculate the factorial of a number. So factorial is actually, if you want to calculate the factorial of 6, for example, then 6 factorial equals 6 into 5 into 4 into 3 into 2 into 1. Okay, 6 into 4 into 3 into 2 then 1. So the actual number multiplied by actual number minus 1, then the actual number minus 2, actual number minus 3, and so on till 1. So now let's create a function which will calculate the factorial of a number. The name of the function is, for example, fact, and then inside the parentheses we will have our argument, for example, number of integer type, and then the return type of this function will be int, and then the body of the function. So inside the body of the function I'm going to create a if statement. If this number equals 1, then return 1. So the factorial of 1 equals 1, so whenever this number equals 1, 1 will be returned because the factorial of 1 is 1. Else return the number multiplied by fact, this function, and inside the parameters I will pass number minus 1. So number minus 1. So we have this recursion calling, we have called this function again. So now first of all, when you pass an integer, for example if you pass 6 here, then 6 will be compared with 1. 6 is not equals to 1, so this condition will not be executed. Then we will call this function again, 6 into fact of 5. Now the number is 6, 5 minus 1, 6 minus 1 equals 5, so the number is multiplied by 5, the factorial of 5. Again when we find the factorial of 5, we call the function again, then the actual number is 5, and we are passing number minus 1, so we will calculate the factorial of 4 now. So this process will be continued until the number becomes 1. So when the number becomes 1, then we will have 1 returned. So now let's call this function. I'm going to create a variable n equals 6, and then another variable result which will store the result equals, and now I'm going to call my function. The name of the function is fact, so I will write fact and then the number which is 6 and n, and then I'm going to print the result. factorial of 6 equals result. So now the return value will be stored in this variable result, which is printed here. Now let's run the program. And you can see here factorial of 6 equals 720. So now what we did in this tutorial, first of all, factorial of 6 equals 6 into 5 into 4 into 3, then 2, and then 1. So now we have passed 6 to this function. Since 6 is not equals to 1, then this condition will not be executed. Else return number which is 6. So now here this statement equals 6 into fact of 5. So 6 minus 1 equals 5. Then again we will have 5. We have called this function, and then now the argument is 5. So 5 is not equals to 1. Then this condition will not be, this body will not be executed, and then we will have the else part. So now the number is 5 into factorial of 4, and so on. So this is how you can calculate the factorial by using the recursive function. Thank you guys for watching the video, and I'll see you in the next tutorial.